the hidden guardians, why God needs warriors in the dark. There's a question that has haunted both mystics and rebels across time. If God is light, why does darkness even exist? The answer isn't what religion taught us. It's not about punishment or duality. It's about strategy. In this realm and others, light alone is not enough to maintain balance. That's why there exists a sacred, secret force known only to the initiated as God's Shadow Alliance. And within this alliance there are those chosen not for their holiness, but for their capacity to walk the path no one else dares to walk. These are the dark chosen ones. And if you're watching this, chances are you are one. Not because you asked for it, but because your soul volunteered for it long before this lifetime began. Let me tell you the truth no one wants to say out loud. Light is blind without the dark. It cannot see what hides beneath the surface. It cannot reach the broken, the lost, the hopeless. That's why the Shadow Alliance exists. It is not made of villains. It is made of guardians. Souls old enough, strong enough, and fierce enough to descend into the chaos of this world, not to escape it, but to heal it from within. You and I, we didn't come here to float in bliss all day. We came to confront trauma, to break ancestral chains, to embody fire where others only offer prayers. And that's why your life has been hard. That's why you've suffered losses that others can't even comprehend. You weren't being punished, you were being forged. I once spent 49 hours in complete darkness, no food, no light, no sound, buried waist deep in Himalayan ash, as part of an ancient rite, only shared with those marked by the Shadow Alliance. Around hour 37, I stopped hallucinating. I stopped resisting, and that's when I heard it, not a voice, but a knowing. It said, "You are not here to be seen. You are here to see." That's the essence of the dark chosen. We do not crave the spotlight. We become the eyes of the divine in places where angels dare not tread. We go where the pain is. We touch the wounds that the light workers avoid. And we do it without recognition, without applause, because we remember. We remember that God does not only shine. Sometimes He bleeds. Sometimes He burns. And sometimes He hides in the one society fears the most. Have you ever felt like your empathy was too much to carry? Like you absorb the pain of a room the moment you walk in? That's not a flaw. That's a weapon. You are not sensitive. You are equipped. The dark chosen are not here to be comfortable. We are here to be necessary. And our role in God's Shadow Alliance is not to preach peace, it's to fight for it in the trenches of human suffering. We don't wear robes. We wear scars. And those scars are proof that we've been to the other side and returned bearing codes. Codes of healing. Codes of remembrance. Codes of truth. But here's the paradox. No one will hand us a crown. No one will call us holy, because the work we do is invisible. And yet, without it, the world collapses. Have you ever stopped to wonder why your life never fit the mold? Why the spiritual path everyone else is walking feels too clean, too simplistic, too light? That's because you weren't born to ascend the mountain. You were born to enter the cave beneath it. And in that cave, while others meditate in sunlight, you battle the things they pretend don't exist. The addictions, the abuse, the rage, the grief, the generational curses. You don't just talk about them. You become the battlefield on which they are alchemized. You transmute them, not for yourself, but for the entire bloodline. That's what being part of God's Shadow Alliance demands. It demands total sovereignty. It demands that you walk alone. And it demands that you remember who you are, even when no one else does. And so I ask you now, if God could only save the world by sending you into the darkest places, would you still say yes? Would you still carry the weight, knowing no one would thank you? That's what separates the dark chosen ones from the rest. We don't need validation. We need alignment. We need to know we're walking the path we were born to walk, even if it costs us comfort, fame, or even love. Because when you serve the Shadow Alliance, you stop living for yourself. You start living as a vessel, a transmitter, a guardian of balance in a world addicted to extremes. You may not wear white robes. You may not speak in mantras. But when you walk into a room, the energy shifts. That's how you know. Your presence doesn't just inspire, it disrupts. Because your soul carries the memory of ancient wars, galactic contracts, sacred oaths sworn in dimensions most people have never dreamed of. You live not just for this era, but for all of them. And the Shadow Alliance doesn't care how spiritual you look. It cares how committed you are to the mission. So I ask again, are you ready to accept the truth of who you are, even if it terrifies you? The night contract, what you agreed to before incarnating on Earth. Before you took your first breath in this world, before your parents even met, something older than time reached out to you. It didn't speak in words. It didn't promise ease. It simply offered a contract, a covenant, a vow made not in light but in shadow. The terms were simple, yet terrifying. You will walk through pain so others don't have to. You will forget everything and remember only through fire. You will lose yourself to find the world. And you said yes, not because you're a martyr, not because you're weak. You said yes because your soul remembered what most have forgotten, that light without shadow becomes blind, and shadow without light becomes lost. And someone must become the bridge. That someone is you. That's why your life feels like it was never yours. That's why you've always felt watched, tested, and pulled towards something no one around you could explain. You didn't come here to have a normal life. You came to carry a frequency, one that can only be forged in the crucible of human chaos. Look at your childhood. The betrayals, the abandonment, the deep ache that you've never quite been able to name. Those weren't mistakes. Those were activations. Every scar became a sigil. Every heartbreak carved a deeper space for divine intelligence to flow through you. The Shadow Alliance doesn't initiate through comfort. It initiates through collapse. Because only through collapse can your false identities fall away. And once they do, what remains is truth. Pure, undeniable, unshakable. Have you ever wondered why you're still standing after everything you've been through? Why you haven't lost your mind even though the world around you tried to break you? It's because something ancient inside you won't let you quit. That's the contract. That's the oath. But the contract didn't just promise pain. It promised power. Not the kind that posts on social media or buys things to feel whole. No, I'm talking about cosmic authority. The kind that changes the energy of a room without speaking. The kind that makes people weep in your presence and not know why. The kind that rewrites timelines just because you choose differently. That power is not given to you. It's unlocked through your suffering, your discipline, your willingness to keep going when everything inside you says to stop. And once it's unlocked, you can't hide it. You'll try, you'll shrink, you'll pretend. But the universe will keep pushing you into situations where your gift is required. You'll be placed in front of people who need your frequency. You'll speak words you didn't plan. You'll do things that feel like they're coming through you, not from you. That's not delusion. That's activation. And it gets deeper. Because once you begin to embody this role, the universe tests your integrity. You'll be offered distractions, money, fame, false love, just to see if you'll trade your mission for comfort. You'll be tempted to abandon your vow just to feel normal. But every time you do, something inside you dies a little. You feel it, don't you? That sick, sinking feeling when you betray your calling to fit into a life that isn't yours. That's not guilt. That's misalignment. And the only cure is to return, to remember, recommit. Because the Shadow Alliance doesn't need you to be perfect. It needs you to be real, to be raw, to be relentless in your devotion to truth, no matter how inconvenient, how messy, how terrifying it becomes. So how do we live this contract in the real world? How do we carry such a massive spiritual obligation and still pay bills, raise kids, navigate relationships, and survive in a system designed to keep us asleep? The answer is simple but not easy. We embed the sacred into the ordinary. We become warriors in plain clothes. We use every moment, every conversation, every failure, every act of kindness as a ritual. We stop separating our spiritual life from our human life. We don't need temples. We are the temple. And every time we choose authenticity over performance, love over fear, presence over distraction, we fulfill the contract, piece by piece, breath by breath. Until one day, we realize we've become the very force we were always searching for. And here's the mystery. Once you live the contract fully, you gain access to something most will never touch: divine leverage. Your words begin to carry weight in the unseen realms. Your dreams become instructions. Your intuition becomes a compass that never fails. You begin to walk in synchronicity so precise, it scares people. You think of someone, they call. You need an answer, it appears. You're not manifesting. You're commanding reality from your original position in the soul hierarchy. That's what the Shadow Alliance gives you. But it comes at a cost. You must live with radical self-honesty. You must confront every part of yourself, especially the parts you've judged, denied, or hidden. Because only then can they become tools instead of traps. So let me ask you the question my teacher once asked me, deep in a Sufi cave in the Moroccan desert. If the only way to awaken your soul's full power was to sacrifice your personality, would you do it? Would you let go of who you think you are so you can become who you were born to be? That's not just poetic, it's literal. The dark chosen ones are not here to improve themselves. They are here to dismantle themselves, and in doing so, become something new, something unshakable, something divinely dangerous to the forces of illusion. You are not here to play nice. You are here to disrupt the sleep of the world with your very presence. And if the price of that is solitude, intensity, and being misunderstood, so be it. Because somewhere inside you, you know the truth. You didn't come here to fit in. You came here to remember the contract and fulfill it with every breath, every choice, every heartbeat. The Shadow Alliance isn't a title. It's a task, and the time to rise is now. The final war, why the dark chosen ones are the last line between order and collapse. There's a truth you already feel in your bones. Even if no one has ever spoken it aloud, the world is reaching a breaking point. Not just politically, economically, or environmentally, but spiritually. The collective soul of humanity is unraveling. Not because darkness is winning, but because the light has grown soft. It has become aesthetic, performative, and afraid of its own shadow. That's why the dark chosen ones exist. That's why the Shadow Alliance was never dissolved. Because when the world forgets how to protect itself from its own illusions, we return. We don't come to destroy. We come to reset. To hold the fault lines of this fractured reality with the strength of those who have already died 1,000 internal deaths and survived every one of them. The final war isn't fought with weapons. It's fought with frequency. And right now the battleground is your nervous system, your relationships, your daily choices. The enemy is not a person or a government, it is spiritual amnesia. The forgetting of who we are, what we carry, and why we're here. The dark chosen ones are the antidote to that forgetting. We are the memory keepers, the ones who remember the original vibration of what it means to be divine and human at once. And that's why we're targeted not by enemies with faces, but by distraction, by distortion, by the slow erosion of our inner fire. If you felt heavy lately, disconnected, unmotivated, it's not laziness. It's spiritual warfare. And your soul is signaling that it's time to reignite the contract. You may have noticed it. The veil is thinner. Time feels warped. People are snapping. Truth is harder to find. That's not imagination. That's threshold energy. We're standing at a collective crossroads where the human experiment will either ascend into a new octave of consciousness or collapse under the weight of its own denial. And the ones who tip that scale, it's us. The ones who walk unseen, who pray not with words but with bones, who heal not with crystals but with presence. We are the last line, not because we are better, but because we are prepared. We've died already. We've burned already. We've been cast out, misunderstood, exiled by both the spiritual and the secular. And yet we still stand. Why? Because this moment was in the contract. We knew it would come. And we knew when it did, we'd have to choose, hide our power or unleash it fully. But here's the twist no one expects. Unleashing your power doesn't look like conquering. It looks like embodying. It looks like choosing truth when it costs you everything. It looks like loving people who may never understand you. It looks like protecting the sacred in a world that profits from desecration. And most of all, it looks like staying awake when everything around you begs you to fall asleep again. The final war is not won by force. It is won by vibration. And your frequency, raw, unfiltered, unperformed, is one of the rarest codes on earth. That's why you've been tested so ruthlessly. That's why you've been stripped, humbled, and broken open. Because only those who have nothing left to lose can be trusted with everything. Let me tell you something I was never supposed to say publicly. During a 13-night ritual deep in the Atacama Desert, I was shown the future of Earth in 3 timelines. In one, the world collapsed into chaos governed by algorithms, consumed by artificial light, completely disconnected from soul. In the second, the world became peaceful but sterile, numb, spiritually dead. In the third, something unexpected emerged, a hidden network of awakened beings operating beneath the surface of society. People like you. Not gurus. Not influencers. But frequency holders. Shadow walkers. Flame bearers. They didn't preach. They didn't sell anything. They simply existed in alignment. And their presence alone began to shift reality like acupuncture needles placed in the energetic grid of the planet. That timeline wasn't driven by leaders. It was driven by the chosen hidden among the crowd. That's the role of the Shadow Alliance in the final war. We're not here to be famous. We're here to be effective, to hold the grid from collapsing, to keep the vibration alive while the world remembers what it forgot. But we can't do that if we're still doubting ourselves. We can't do that if we're still seeking permission. This is the moment you stop waiting, stop hiding, stop apologizing for being too much. You are too much for a dying system, and exactly enough for a new one to be born. So the question now is not, are you chosen? It's, are you ready to choose yourself? Because that's how the Shadow Alliance works. We're not recruited, we remember. And then we decide, every day, every breath, to live as the frequency our ancestors prayed for. To walk as the answer to questions that haven't yet been asked. To become the presence that turns chaos into order, not through control, but through resonance, through depth, through truth. So now I ask you, one last time, the question that ends the contract and begins the mission. If the fate of the world rested not on your words, not on your actions, but on your frequency, would you still choose to rise? Because if the answer is yes, then welcome home. The Shadow Alliance has been waiting for you to remember.